Hello and welcome to our presentation. My name is Christopher Patopoulos. Along with my fellow ECE students, we'll be presenting our findings on the development of smartphones during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of all possible topics that are available, the reason why we chose smartphones is because at this stage in undergrad, all of us have worked on many components that are used to build smartphones. Components such as semiconductors, processors, and transistors. For any of you that doesn't know what a smartphone is, it is essentially a handheld desktop that allows you to make phone calls, send text messages, and access many multimedia applications such as video sharing and picture sharing. The main objectives that were sought out were the reporting on the scientific and technological developments of smartphones in Canada between 2015 and 2020, as well as uncovering the main actors in this industry. In order to accomplish this objective, we shall use the Techno-Economic Network Framework, also known as TEN. What the TEN framework comprises of is 3 major poles and 1 minor pole. A major pole has a significant role in the innovation process, while a minor pole has a supportive role. The major pole consists of a science pole, technology pole, and a market pole, while the minor pole is a finance pole. What makes a pole unique is its links between the actors and their accomplishments of the innovation, both within the community and in the world. Without further ado, let's dive into it.
To show the connection between different topics present in many different papers, we use an application named VOSViewer. This application can create a diagram that visualizes something called total link strength. Total link strength is the total number of times one word and the keyword, in this case, smartphones, are both present in a paper together. That means the higher the total link strength is, the more papers touch on both those subjects. As can be seen in the network visualization we made, the diagram contains 7 different clusters of keywords, each in a different color. In light of the current situation with COVID-19, one cluster that should be highlighted is that which relates to healthcare. This is the dark blue cluster in the top right corner. The cluster contains 16 different keywords. Some keywords from this cluster that should be mentioned are patient monitoring and patient diagnostics.
Hello guys, my name is Sidesh and I will be talking to you about the science poll. When we talk about the science poll, it is very important to know who the main actors that are involved in the publication of the papers on the subject are. In this case, the subject is smartphones. But it is especially more important to know who the actors are because this allows you to place hypotheses about the branches of the TEN framework, which include the finance pole, the technology pole, as well as the market pole, which you will hear later from my colleagues. The focus of this presentation will be on the Canadian actors, more specifically the Canadian institutes. So when we look at the top publishing institute in Canada, it would be the University of Waterloo, which has 46 publications between 2015 and 2020, which represents 9.2% of all publication in Canada. This is just by University of Waterloo, and this is mostly due to the fact that University of Waterloo has many research centers associated with the universities, which allows them to conduct and publish more papers about various subjects, including smartphones. Now, if we look at the other actors, there is the University of Ottawa, University of British Columbia, University of Calgary, as well as Toronto. These have slightly less paper published, but they still contribute to the research on smartphones. Now, let's talk about open access. So to define open access, I took the definition from UNESCO, which says, open access means free access to information and unrestricted use of electronic resources for everyone. To simplify this means open access is every document published by any paper anywhere. You can read them for free without having to go through a barrier of legal rights and everything. Now, if we look at from 2015 to 2020, the total number of paper published on smartphones worldwide was 19,323. Now, if we look at how many of these papers were open access, meaning free for everyone, it represents 2,632 papers. This represents about 13.6% of all papers published in those 5 years are free for everyone. Now, if we look at Canada, There were 592 papers published in those years, and only 83 of these were free for everyone. And this represents about 14% of all papers that were free to access in Canada. Now, this means that only 13.6% of research was free for everyone, and people were able to use that and develop and do further research. Whereas the other papers you would either have to pay or have a different way of accessing those papers. Imagine how much research could be done if a lot more paper were free for everyone, for open access, allowing more people to develop that research and go further up. This is something that we need to work on as to making more paper open access for everyone. Thank you.
Today's technology overall, and smartphones especially, are becoming more and more of a necessity than a luxury. And we can clearly see how that importance and weight is reflected on the industry it partakes in. Since it consists of selling goods, it is really shown in the 16% employment rate for the retail industry alone, followed by the manufacturing industry by 10.5%, which is completely understandable, as those are the two main components of making and selling a smartphone. We can see from this that it is that it has a quite good input on the economy by contributing through job creations in multiple sectors. When it comes to smartphones, specifically, and the industries it's associated with, in terms of gender gap employment, the numbers are pretty much equal across the board, except in manufacturing, where there is a relatively big difference, 15% for males compared to 6% for females. In terms of wages, the difference becomes a lot more noticeable as it's seen across the industries. Males are paid better by at least 18%. The gap reaches an unbelievable 24% in the professional, scientific, and technical industries. In terms of impact of the pandemic on the industries, obviously most have been impacted, but the information and cultural industries have been greatly impacted, more than the others, as most of the cultural centers were closed and could not operate as they are not considered essential businesses. And at the same time, their events are not as attracting when they are held online. And thus, the 16% decrease in demand has resulted from the pandemic year 2020. Most businesses have also noticed a decrease in productivity of some sort, which could be due to different reasons and situations, at home, or even the overall mood and concern of the people surrounding the pandemic. When talking about the sponsors, the biggest five sponsors in the smartphone industry, come in at first place: the Natural Sciences and Engineering Council of Canada, which contributed with almost 54,000 papers between 2015 and 2020, and have more than 97% of those 54,000 were papers in Canada. Coming at second place, the National Natural Science Foundation of China with more than 940,000 papers, of which 1.6% were in Canada. In third place, there's the Canada Research Chairs with almost 3,800 papers, and more than 98% of those were in Canada. At fourth place, there's the Canada Foundation for Innovation with 51,000 papers, and 97% of those were in Canada. And finally, last but not least, the Canada Institutes of Health and Research, contributing with more than 3,300 papers, of which 94.4% were in Canada. Yeah, that's concerning the financial poll.
The technology pool consists of the set of companies that develop products around a certain technology and that acquire the intellectual property of these products through patents. Each patent has a code that describes the categories that technology falls into. And so for smartphones, it is H04M1/725. These patents are filed at the World Intellectual Property Organization and are accessible through the patent scope database by searching the related IPC. So by looking at the number of patents filed around smartphone technology, one can find out who the main actors are, how often they publish, so the enthusiasm around the technology and overall the direction in which this technology is going. So for Canada, from 2015 to 2020, Huawei and Microsoft are the leaders in patent filing, with each about 7% of the total patents filed, the total 44 patents filed. Huawei patents relate largely to speech and voice recognition, and Microsoft patents relate to digital assistant features, all surrounding AI features. So to put these numbers in perspective, 11,000 patents were filed in the US and 31,000 in China over the same period of time regarding smartphones, compared to the 44 in Canada, which really puts Canada behind.
Next, we'll talk about the market pool. The main industries that we found had a strong correlation to smartphones were the information and cultural industries, retail trade, and manufacturing. The manufacturing industry is responsible for the birth of smartphones, since this is where they were created. The retail trade industry is responsible for the distribution of smartphones, since this is where the consumers get their hands a hold of these devices. And lastly, the information and cultural industries allow smartphones the ability to create and distribute media, such as photos and videos. If I look at the stats provided by Stats Canada, we can see that there is a gap in unemployment as well as wage between men and women in all three of these sectors. It is noted that men are usually paid more and hired more compared to women. These numbers are shown below in our presentation. Due to this, smartphones will only contribute to the gender gap in employment as well as wage in the above mentioned sectors. Again, if we look at the stats provided by Stats Canada, the development of smartphones will actually only benefit the workers of Canada, since it will lower unemployment rate. The data already shows a steady decrease in unemployment from 2010 until 2020, until we see a large spike in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. These stats are key to government officials that are looking to create more jobs for Canadians. By simply giving grants or subsidies to companies, they can use these benefits to hire more Canadians to build facilities or even aid in research. As I alluded to earlier, the COVID-19 pandemic negatively impacted the industries that were related to smartphones. This is confirmed once again by Stats Canada. Due to these losses, it created a storm of problems such as the lack of capital to purchase new material for the creation of new products, or even to hiring new staff of employees to aid in research or even development of new products.
Smartphones have almost become a compulsory item to have, especially in these difficult times. They give us direct access to information, are an excellent way to contact people, and are also an excellent way to share information, since they are almost always with us. Before the pandemic, apps on smartphones could have been used to allow doctors from any hospital to access or modify a patient's information. They could also leave notes for the next person who meant to access it. This would also eliminate the confusion of having to move around paper files and the possibility of losing them. During the pandemic, however, smartphones have helped in more practical ways. An app called COVID Alert was developed in Ontario and has helped Canada lower their curve of infection. The Honourable Christine Elliott, Ontario's Deputy Premier and Minister for Health, has said that, and I quote, "The app keeps people informed about being potentially exposed to the virus and allows them to act quickly to stop the spread of the virus." Also, most businesses have noticed a decrease in productivity of some sort, which could be due to different situations at home or even the overall mood and concern of the population surrounding the pandemic. Also, all industries have seen a decrease in demand for their products and services. The three industries most related to smartphones are the retail trade, manufacturing, and the information and cultural industries. The retail trade has been one of the hardest hit. 73% of the industry has felt a major impact due to the global pandemic. 27% of the industry has seen a decrease of 50% or more to their revenues during the pandemic. The manufacturing industry has also been hit hard, with the whole industry seeing at least some sort of decrease in revenue during the pandemic. This is all to say that COVID-19 has had a lasting impact on us.